The mysterious Father CRESPI claims to have found evidence of the existence of giants and extraterrestrial civilizations. And indeed, there is tangible evidence of these ancient myths and legends, a fabled golden library. But why is this sensational find being covered up by the Vatican? We take you on an incredible journey into a world of mystery and legend and reveal the truth behind this spectacular find. Do you want to discover the inconceivable? Then subscribe to our channel and let's go on the trail of the past together. The man behind the mystery. The story surrounding the ominous Father CRESPI couldn't be more mysterious. According to some controversial reports, the priest stumbled upon an underground cave system in Ecuador, complete with a metallic library. The artifacts there would completely overturn our common view of history. For example, the bizarre structures, like the Americas to ancient Sumerians, provide evidence of alien visitation and reveal a global Vatican conspiracy. But how much of this breathtaking story is true in the end? And why is Father CRESPI's private artifact collection actually kept in inaccessible storage rooms and vaults today? First, let's start with the established facts. What we do know is that Father Carlos CRESPI Croce was a monk of the Salesian order who was born in Italy in 1891. After studying anthropology at the University of Milan, he decided to pursue a career as a clergyman. As part of this, CRESPI was sent to the small Indian town of Cancina in Ecuador in 1923 to do charitable work among the indigenous population, a task to which the priest was to devote himself until his death in 1982. Within the local population, the Italian-born priest enjoyed great popularity. To this day, a statue of CRESPI commemorates the priest's merciful deeds. Among other things, he founded an orphanage and several schools, distributed money and food, and always had an open ear for the worries and needs of the residents. However, Father CRESPI did not only want to help the people of Crescenda, he also showed a keen interest in the numerous other indigenous tribes throughout Ecuador and tried to learn about their traditions and culture. The CRESPI collection. Overwhelmed by the priest's selfless charity, the natives eventually began donating various artifacts to him in gratitude for his dedication. These objects came from all parts of the country and represented virtually all of Ecuador's indigenous cultures. Knowing that the families in the area were often desperately poor, but that their pride prevented them from asking him for money, CRESPI insisted on paying them for their gifts. As it happened, Father CRESPI acquired more than 50,000 objects over the decades. Some of them, there was no doubt about it, were clearly modern forgeries. For the clergyman, however, it was the gesture that counted, so this did not bother him. After the CRESPI collection had taken on ever greater proportions, the Vatican granted permission to found a museum to house the artifacts. But unfortunately, most of them were to be destroyed in a fire in 1962. Since even the undamaged specimens were subsequently removed, the rest of the CRESPI collection was considered irretrievably lost for decades. What happened to the missing objects was completely uncertain. While some suspected that they would henceforth gather dust in hidden basement archives, others thought it more likely that they would be sold to private collectors or taken to the Vatican. Unexplained artifacts. Many of the CRESPI artifacts were common in that they could be clearly attributed to a particular indigenous culture. However, among the collection were some strange items that still cause heated debate today. Some of these objects seem to have a Babylonian style. Others seem to be made of pure gold and were decorated with strange symbols that could not be assigned to any known South American culture. It seemed that the unknown characters were some kind of ancient writing that no expert had ever seen before. Richard Wingate had the honor of seeing the mysterious artifacts with his own eyes in the 1970s. After the researcher and writer from Florida had examined and photographed the extensive collection, he was deeply impressed. He described the objects as, quote, "the most valuable archaeological treasure of all time." And by that, he did not mean that the value of gold and silver objects rose immeasurably, but rather the fact that the collection raised some fundamental historical questions. How could it be that artifacts classified as Assyrian, Egyptian, Chinese, and African appeared among the ranks of Ecuador's indigenous populations? If one follows the official historiography, these groups should never have met. CRESPI also considered it impossible that the roots of the objects were in Ecuador. He suspected a Babylonian origin. Finally, Wingate complained that the researchers are apparently not at all interested in getting to the bottom of this mystery. On the contrary, it seemed as if the CRESPI collection was being deliberately erased from public coverage. The Secret Library. 1973 was the year in which the CRESPI collection finally hit the international headlines. Thus, Erich von Däniken's controversial book, Gold of the Gods, was published at that time. In it, the proponent of pre-astronautics claimed that a certain Juan Maurice discovered a secret tunnel system in the Teos Caves in Ecuador that hid something almost unbelievable: a colossal metal library brimming with mysterious gold artifacts. These objects had been handed over to Father CRESPI afterwards. Furthermore, von Däniken stated that the artifacts came from the ranks of a lost civilization and were created with the help of extraterrestrial beings. Following the claims of Moritz and von Däniken, the library consisted of thousands of books with metal pages, each page adorned with cryptic symbols, geometric patterns, and unknown inscriptions. Furthermore, the hidden vault was so gigantic that it could not possibly have been built by humans. The beings who created the library would have to be compared to giants in the flesh. On the trail of the mystery. But how do we classify these almost unbelievable reports? Well, this is a question that the staff of Ancient Origins also wanted to get to the bottom of. For this reason, they set out for Ecuador to search for answers on site. With success from Padre Javier Haran, the current priest in Cuenca, and a former companion of CRESPI, they learned that the artifacts were acquired by the Ecuadorian Central Bank after the fire of 1962. And indeed, a meeting was then arranged with Dr. Luis Alvarez, who allowed the visitors to admire the remaining CRESPI collection with their own eyes. However, Alvarez, who is a bona fide CRESPI expert, emphasized that there is absolutely nothing to the claims made by Moritz and von Däniken. Rather, he said the priest was completely shocked when he learned of the supposed discovery of the metal library. After the Central Bank of Ecuador agreed to the visit, the Ancient Origins employees were presented with an overwhelming sight. As they walked through the storage rooms and marveled at row after row, they spotted ceremonial figurines, weapons, jewelry, pottery, elongated skulls, and even some shrunken heads. The only thing missing was any trace of the metal pages from the underground library. The book pages. Doubters would claim at this point that the journalists did not get to see the pages. Of course, after all, the string pullers in the background would do anything to maintain the image of official historiography. Asked about the metal pages, the experts present immediately waved them off, saying that the central bank refused to buy the objects because they were nothing more than fake scrap metal. Nevertheless, Dr. Alvarez agreed to guide visitors to the disputed plates. These were stored at the opposite end of the complex in an old, dilapidated building. While the previous artifacts had been neatly sorted and expertly displayed, the plates were wildly jumbled on the floor and in simple cardboard boxes. A quick glance was enough to realize that the people in charge did not attach any value to these objects. Moreover, the plates were not made of gold or silver at all, but a very soft, elastic material reminiscent of aluminum. The decorations were at times crude and bumbling. It is true that some of these scenes depicted were quite bizarre, and yet they looked merely like modern carvings in cheap sheet metal. Should these really have been those legendary artifacts that von Däniken had so pompously described in his book? Final thoughts. Let us draw a short conclusion at this point. One thing is certain. Father CRESPI has indeed collected countless authentic artifacts from the ranks of the indigenous population in the course of his life. But it is also certain the plates that the journalists examined had nothing to do with those breathtaking objects that von Däniken mentioned in Gold of the Gods. Is the story about the underground library therefore invalid? Or have the originals always been kept in the secret archives of the Vatican, as is suspected in some circles? But even apart from that, a mystery remains. What happened to the mysterious gold artifacts that Richard Wingate photographed in the 1970s? Why were they not in the bank's storerooms? Were they authentic? And if so, what historical significance do they hold? Even if we have come a few steps closer to solving the mystery of the CRESPI collection, some mysteries still remain hidden. And now, we are curious about your opinion. What do you think about the amazing artifact collection of Father CRESPI? Do you think that something like an underground metal library really exists? We look forward to your comments. Remember to give us a thumbs up and a subscription to stay up to date from now on. And with that, thanks for watching, take care, and see you next time.